Grab a cup of coffee and start your Sunday with Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life features stories to inspire, motivate, and empower you. Live your best life now. Listen, learn, think, and decide. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Every Sunday morning at 9 on the Talk of New York, AM 970, The Apple. Visit cyacyl.com.
Hi, I'm Joan Herman, and this is Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Thanks for tuning in. Today's guest is Colin Tipping, author and creator of Radical Forgiveness, a spiritual philosophy for personal and spiritual growth. Colin is the author of many books, including Radical Forgiveness and Radical Manifestation, the fine art of creating the life you want. His newest book is entitled Radical Self-Forgiveness, the direct path to true acceptance. Good morning, Colin. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, good morning, Joan. Thank you for having me on.
I'd like to just start off, and correct me if I'm wrong, in very simplistic terms, when we're talking about radical forgiveness. When people think of forgiveness, we always think of the let bygones be bygones and let time heal the wounds and let it go type of thing. And I was raised in Italian. I am the queen of victimhood and martyrdom. So I know that when we talk about all the wrong things that have been done to us in life, that we need to forgive and get over, that your concept to me makes so much sense because simplistically speaking, basically what you're saying with radical forgiveness is everything that happens to us, the good, the bad, it all happens for a reason, for a divine plan of where we need to be and for the gifts and lessons that we need to experience. Is that basically the nutshell, the essence of it?
That's correct. That's a very good summation of the idea and the practice of radical forgiveness.
So before we get into it even further, to make it even more simplistic, if someone in my life, let's say, and people experience this all the time, someone, and I'm using the ordinary language, someone betrayed us and they wronged us and we're angry at this person or we're angry at the situation and we hash this over and over again and we give it life continually. What you're basically saying is that this event or this person came into our life to bring us what we needed for our healing and our spiritual growth and development. Is that true?
That's true, Joe. Yes, exactly.
Okay, so with that said, very simplistically, I'd like to get into all of this and dissect it a bit. So tell me now, how does the concept of radical forgiveness really differ from this ordinary forgiveness that we know about?
Well, you mentioned earlier on, right at the very beginning, that a normal concept of forgiveness is letting bygones be bygones. And that's fine as far as it goes, but nobody really tells us how to do that. And that's where we get stuck in our victim consciousness because we'll say, yes, we'll let bygones be bygones, but you still did that to me. I'm still a victim no matter what, even though I'm trying to let it go. So there was always that difficulty. And when I first started to do this work, I was working with people who had cancer. And it's well known that people who tend to get that are people who have a hard time processing their feelings. They tend to repress them, and they have a hard time forgiving. So my naive thought at the time was, well, all I need to do is teach them how to forgive. And then I realized how difficult it is for people to do that. So that's why I came up with something that's really quick and easy, which I call radical forgiveness. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's how I actually got started. And if we think of forgiveness in terms of a process, the first stage is always to tell the story. You know, what actually happened? What is my victim story? And then to feel the feelings associated with that story. And then as the traditional way of forgiveness, and also the third step in the radical forgiveness, is to say, okay, well, what made the person do that? Let me bring some understanding to this and see why this person did that, and let me walk in their shoes a little bit, and let me see what maybe some unrealistic expectations I had of this person in the first place, or how did I possibly upset them that would make them do such a thing, and so on and so forth. So that would be about as far as we could go with traditional forgiveness. But with radical forgiveness, we go this one step further, and you've already explained it very nicely, that after we have done that process, then we say, well, I'm willing to entertain the possibility that there was a divine purpose in this, that what this person did to me actually was doing for me as a way for me to advance myself spiritually. That was part of what my soul came in to experience and wanted to experience. And this person showed up in my life to do to me what I wanted to experience as part of my spiritual growth. So it's that willingness to be open to that possibility that there was a divine purpose in it that seems to shift the energy in a dramatic way. And what's so wonderful about it is that we don't even have to believe it. There's no belief required. There's no special skill required. You don't have to be a special person to do it. You don't have to meditate or be a vegetarian or any of those things that you normally associate with people who, do wonderful spiritual work. All you have to do is to use the tools that we've created. And that comes back to the how. And we've created some simple tools like worksheets and audio tools that you listen to and respond to in a very simple way. And somehow that seems to shift the energy in a way that's beyond our mind. It's not a mental thing, it's a spiritual thing.
Well, and Colin, and that's why I really want to make this as simplistic as possible, because it is difficult to sometimes accept that things are supposed to happen this way. So you start off with basic assumptions that we must be willing to accept for radical forgiveness. And one of them is, as we've been talking about, is that life is not a random set of events without purpose. Mm-hmm. How can we really understand that? And I'd like to take these and just go through them to make it more clear to people.
Right. Well, the first thing to say about that is that we don't have to understand them. If we try to do this mentally, through our mental intelligence, then we tend to get stuck. So if we're going to try to analyze this from a very rational standpoint, it becomes very difficult and we get stuck there. That's why I emphasize the word willingness to be open to it, but not to be able to understand it or figure it out or know what the purpose is. It's just a willingness. Okay, I'm willing to entertain this as a possibility that maybe there is a purpose in it, even though I don't know what it is.
Okay, so we put the cognitive thought aside, and now we're willing to be open to the fact that it's supposed to happen for a purpose. Then you talk about that we're the co-creators and get precisely what we want. What did you mean by that?
Well, that as a soul, what we've done is to come into the human experience in order to have a number of experiences of separation or duality, because this is a world of duality and separation, and this is why we've come here, in order to really get what oneness is that we've been experiencing in the spiritual world. We have to experience the opposite of it, which is separation. So it's possible that we agreed with a certain number of souls that we would give each other these experiences, and these would form our life lessons. So it's in that sense that we get what we want at the spiritual level. Now, of course, as a human being, we're not aware of this. It all happens at a very unconscious level.
Okay, so we accept now that the events happen for a purpose, that it's something that we have created and decided upon. And now this is what this next one I find quite interesting, that whenever we get upset with another person, they're resonating in us something that we have condemned in ourselves and denied, repressed, and projected onto that person.
Yes.
What did you mean by that?
Well, actually, this is quite a well-known psychological mechanism, as well as a way for us to heal our own psyche or a spiritual self too. It's the mechanism of projection, and if there's a part of us that we are not accepting, in fact, and maybe even be hating, the way that we deal with that is to project it onto other people and make them wrong. So if somebody is out there who is upsetting us in some way, or that we find difficult to accept because we're making judgments about them, what we're really doing is looking in the mirror, because they are reflecting for us the part of us that we don't like. And therefore it's a healing opportunity. And so that's part of the forgiveness process. Instead of saying, oh, that person's terrible, I'm not going to associate with them ever again, that's the worst person I can ever imagine, we say, oh, maybe that person is reflecting something in me that I've denied, repressed, and projected onto them, and therefore this person is giving me an opportunity to heal myself, and therefore this person is, shall we say, a healing angel for us, and in doing the forgiveness work on them, we're actually forgiving ourselves.
So something that we're judging another person for, in theory, we are judging ourselves, So then we reflect that back and we take care of our self-worth.
Yes, exactly.
The next one is that our soul will always move us in the direction of healing and will keep on creating situations that offer us the opportunity to see the error in our thinking or beliefs.
Right.
People come into our lives to lovingly act out the parts over and over until we heal the error. And anyone who makes the same mistakes over and over again has to understand this one.
If you have a group of people and you say to them, how many of you have got a pattern that seems to keep on repeating itself over and over again? And 90% of people will put up their hand and say, oh, yes, I have this pattern of abandonment or a betrayal or something like that. And what's happening there is that one's own spiritual self, one's higher self, if you like, is orchestrating us to have these experiences until we get it, that it is a misperception and that we need to change our point of view about it, about ourselves. And so it's a self-healing mechanism that operates below the level of conscious awareness, though, that sets up these situations for us so that until such time as we get it, that we've been laboring under a belief about ourselves or about the world which is untrue, and which is not serving us, and it's an opportunity for us to wake up and see the truth of who we are and what life is all about.
And then that would tie into the next one, that the people who appear to be the most troublesome are our greatest teachers. So that boss that you have that you keep having the same problems with, or that friend, or that romantic partner or spouse, it's not that they're necessarily a troublesome person. It's just that you haven't learned the lessons through this person, correct?
Yes, although I would say, of course, at the human level, this person is troublesome, and they could even be, dangerous for us in some ways. But as soon as we get it that that's there to serve us, then we can do the forgiveness work, and that behavior usually disappears. But if it doesn't, and I want to stress this, if it doesn't, we have to take care of ourselves and move away from people who are highly toxic to us, while at the same time we do the forgiveness work on them. Radical forgiveness is not a recipe for being a doormat. If you're in an abusive relationship, shall we say, and you do the forgiveness work and the abuse does not stop, then get out of the relationship. So we have to be practical with this, as well as operating at that kind of spiritual level.
But the radical forgiveness part is to learn your lessons, accept that it was to be for a particular reason, and then move on.
Exactly. But the interesting thing about it is that when we do the work, it does seem to affect the overall situation and everybody else in it, because it's an energy shift. And once you move your energy, then everybody else is affected by that shift, and there are choices to whether to keep their behavior or to modify it. And very often, an abusive relationship, shall we say, once we do the forgiveness work on it, just disappears, and that behavior disappears because there's no longer any need for it at the spiritual level.
And Colin, quickly before break, there's one other assumption, and that is disease begins in the subtle bodies first, and only later does it manifest in the body as illness. Can you just explain that part?
The idea there is that we have more than one body. We have 7 or 8 bodies that become even more subtle as we move up the scale of frequency. And so we have a physical body, an etheric body, emotional body, mental body, and spiritual body. And oftentimes I think the wound, especially when we're children, that wound occurs to the spiritual body first, because it's the most delicate, if you like, the most subtle of the bodies, and then into the emotional body, and it will, over a period of time, make its way down the vibratory scale to a point where it then becomes a disease in the physical body. So that's what I mean by that, and it comes out of our work really with the cancer, because I would always say to people who had cancer, what happened to you 5 to 7 years prior to the onset of the cancer? And there was nearly always a severe loss or some sort of trauma that was not processed at the time. And so that energy block in the more subtle bodies was all the time moving energy until such time as it actually showed up in the physical body as a disease.
Colin, we're going to take a short break for our sponsors. We'll be right back. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life now has a monthly free digital magazine that can be mailed to your inbox or read online at cyacyl.com. Each month, nationally recognized leaders in their fields, such as Joel Osteen, Sean T., Tanya Brown, Ed and Deb Shapiro, Food Network's Robert Irvine, plus many others, provide the tools that you need to inspire and motivate you. We believe in a holistic approach to life, incorporating mind, body, and spirit. As philosopher Francis Bacon said, knowledge is power. Take the wisdom provided in the publication and apply it to your everyday life. Visit cyacyl.com for more information or to begin your free subscription. That's cyacyl.com. Welcome back to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Our guest today is Colin Tipping, author and creator of Radical Forgiveness, a spiritual philosophy for personal and spiritual growth. Colin, we understand now the importance that everything happens for a reason, that it's a divine plan, that it's for our spiritual well-being. And knowing this and being open to it is one thing. How do we now apply this to our lives to make it a part of our life and integrate it?
Well, one of the most important things about radical forgiveness we've come to understand is that we have to use all those simple tools, but they seem to be essential to the process. If we try to do it in our heads, then we're using our rational intellect, and that doesn't seem to work very well. But when we do the worksheets, use the tools, what I think is happening is that it's allowing us to tap into our spiritual intelligence, which is a whole different way of operating. And so it does seem to me to be essential that we use those tools. Now, we can use radical forgiveness at different levels here. We can use it to consciously heal the past. Let's say we know that we had some childhood wounds that were never healed, so we can use the radical forgiveness tools to go back in and heal those things and to, shall we say, dissolve the energy patterns that were associated with that particular trauma that has caused us to have a repeating pattern of it over and over and over in our lives. So that's one level. The other thing, though, which I think is even more important, really, is that we use this radical forgiveness process on a daily basis. And so that whenever we get upset, because life continues to happen to us no matter what, whenever we get a little bent out of shape about something, we say, here's an opportunity to do radical forgiveness. So I either reach for a worksheet or the 13-step CD, which is a very quick way of doing it, or there is one, actually, that we can do from memory. And I can perhaps, this is something that the listeners go away with, and that's what I call my four-step emergency process. Okay? And there are four very simple steps to it. The first one is to say to yourself, oh my goodness, look what I've created. That's taking responsibility for having created this circumstance. The second one is to say, I notice my judgments and my feelings, but I love myself anyway. And that's recognizing that as a human being, I'm going to get upset, and I'm going to get angry, and I'm going to get frightened, or whatever it is that I am. But I love myself anyway in whatever I'm feeling. Third step is the radical forgiveness step, where you say, I'm willing to see the perfection in this situation, and that's the radical forgiveness step. And then finally, number 4 is I choose peace. And it's amazing how that works. It will shift the energy very, very quickly and prevent you from going to victim land, as I call it, where you might want to hang out for days on end, whereas this will allow you to shift out of that vibration very, very quickly. So just to recap what those steps are, it's, wow, look what I've created, even if you say it through clenched teeth. I notice my judgments and my feelings, but love myself anyway. I'm willing to see the perfection in this situation, and I choose peace.
And as you said earlier, this is all our choice. We choose this. We remove that victimhood, that I've been wronged type of thing. And it's all choice. And that's what we say here. Change our attitude, change our life.
Yes. And it is a fake it till you make it thing. Mm-hmm. Because even though we say it when we're feeling very angry, it doesn't feel very authentic to ourselves. We say, I know I'm just saying this. But it works anyway. What I like about it, we don't have to be this person who is, so spiritual that they can rise above whatever is happening. You can do it while you're still being the normal human being that we are.
How long can someone realistically expect to be able to make this type of mindset and lifestyle transition?
Yeah, that's a good question. It does take some time. The main thing, of course, is to experience it one time and say to and realize how powerful it is, and then to say to yourself, wow, I need to try to get this as part of my daily mindset, and that does take a little bit of effort and time, and we do have programs to help people to do that over a period of time, to get into the habit of defaulting into this radical forgiveness mindset instead of our normal default, which is to go straight into victim land. Mm-hmm. And the trap there, of course, once we go into victim land, it's very hard to get out of it.
Yes.
And we get a lot of support for that, from the media, from everywhere else. We're all victims. Somebody has to be to blame and so on. So it's very easy to get into that mindset. It's one that we've been really grown up with. So in order for us to have a default system where we say, yeah, this isn't very nice and I'm a bit upset about it, but there must be a reason behind it. Let me do a radical forgiveness worksheet just real quick to move beyond it so that I don't have to go to victim land. And that does take a little bit of time and a little bit of coaching, I would say. So we do have people that are trained as coaches to provide that kind of support where people can develop that sort of mindset and go to that default.
Colin, very quickly before we run out of time, your newest book is called Radical Self-Forgiveness.
Yes.
How does that differ? And does it share a lot of the same concept?
It does. It's based pretty much on the same concept, except that we had a bit of a conundrum with self-forgiveness because we were trying to forgive ourselves. So we were, so it raised the question: is who forgiving who here? Because if I'm the forgiver and the forgiven, we're being judge, jury, witness, and prosecution all in the same.
But we're so good at that.
Yeah, but the truth is, of course, everybody will agree that it seems to be much more difficult to forgive yourself than to forgive other people.
Yes.
And so, so what we've done here with this book is to point out that the conflict we feel over self-forgiveness is really because when we appeal to our human self, the part of ourselves that are really going to come forward in this process are the judging self and the critical parent self, because we're not just one self, we're a whole community of selves. But those two are much more likely to say, no, you're a bad person, you can't be forgiven for what you've done. So in the radical self-forgiveness process, what the tools help us to do is to go beyond the ego and to ask that from our higher self and say, the higher self will always say yes because it loves us totally, because it knows exactly why we're here and what our job is and what we're supposed to be doing. And so that radical forgiveness really helps us to ask forgiveness from our own higher self, and it's always given. So again, it's that energy process and going through the worksheet that connects us to that spiritual self through our own spiritual intelligence that really makes it work.
And if our listeners would like more information, you can visit the websites radicalselfforgiveness.com or radicalforgiveness.com. Or as always, you can check out our website, cyacyl.com, which stands for Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. While on the website, check out our new digital magazine, listen to past shows as podcasts, and follow the show on Facebook. Colin, it was wonderful to have you here. I think that this is definitely something everyone should get into the habit of practicing. The ramifications are incredible for our lives, and I think it just is a way to accept what happens and for us to move forward.
Thank you, Joan. There's nothing more valuable as a way to change your attitude than forgiveness, in my opinion. So
Thank
I
you,
love the
Colin.
work that you do.
Thank you very much. This is Joan Herman, and this is Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Thanks for tuning in.